talk about deaf awareness. I'm going to talk about how Dr. Cogswell, he had a daughter named Alice who was deaf, and he was concerned about her future. Sorry, just trying to get in the camera there. I'm sliding off. I'm sliding off over here. So he organized a group of parents in New England to, start figuring out what they're going to do with their deaf children and their future. So they enlisted this man, Thomas Gallaudet. And now if Gallaudet rings a bell, yeah, we'll get to that in a few moments. They enlisted him for his help to figure out what are they going to do. So Thomas traveled to England to see what type of schools they had, and their school was only oral. And oral means that it's lip reading. And I believe the statistics, if it serves me correctly, only about 30% you actually get from lip reading. So it's really not...
Does that mean it's only 30% intelligible?
Yes, thank you. Thanks for the ad lib. I forgot half my sentence. That's why you have a teacher on board. Right?
You know what day it is. I knew what your sentence was going to be.
That's right. She fills in the blank. So, so oral means lip reading. So, and he noticed that the students weren't very happy or anything, so he didn't think that was a good idea. So then when he was in England, he saw an advertisement for a French sign language. So he decided to go check that out. So he went to Paris, and he met, he went to the School for the Deaf in Paris, and he met teacher Jean Maysu and Laurent Clerc. And they were both deaf. And he saw what they were doing, and he saw how happy the students were signing. And he's like, this is what we need in America. So that's what they did. So Thomas was like, oh my God, I'm not a teacher, like Roberta here.
God didn't know me.
Yeah.
I helped him out.
Absolutely. So he's like, oh my God, what am I going to do?
What is he going to do?
This is perfect for the United States, for our kids here, but he doesn't know how to teach. So he convinces Laurent Clerc to come to the United States. And he had many reasons to say no. He had a lot going on.
The food's better in France.
Yeah, but I have never been to France, but
but I hear.
Yeah. So they came back here, and Clerc established a community using French Sign Language. And the U.S. students, they were using some type of old American Sign Language. I don't think it was very formalized or anything like that. So between the French Sign Language and the language that our students were using amongst themselves here in the United States, ended up forming American Sign Language.
Wow, that's great.
So, so for the next 30 years, any new deaf school that was started in the United States used American Sign Language from, what Laurent Clerc brought here and our kids here created together. So,
helped by Thomas Gallaudet.
Yes, absolutely.
Is it still sounding familiar?
Yes, we'll get to that. It's coming up. Okay, so, and the first deaf school was created in Hartford, Connecticut. Yes.
Right in Hartford.
Right in Hartford. So, and then, so the schools were using American Sign Language, and then oral schools started popping up in about 1867, and for the next 100 years, ASL was not allowed to be used. So they were going back to the oral method. And if you want to know more about the oralist, I had posted on our Facebook page a PBS special where they go into a lot more history about the oralist, even the civil rights movement and stuff. It's a great read, and it's through PBS, so I recommend reading it. So, oral schools really aren't that beneficial to deaf people, and, obviously now we live in modern times, and there's a lot more research that English and sign language used together, it seems to be the most effective method
of communication.
So
you can be more social. That's probably why they weren't as happy, as they weren't communicating as well.
Mm-hmm. And even for learning, my son happens to be hard of hearing, and he goes to a deaf school, and they use both sign and and English is how he learns, by using both methods. So Thomas Gallaudet, throughout his whole life, promoted deaf education in America, and the first deaf college was named after him in honor of him for
Gallaudet University.
Yes, for all that he did for the deaf community, and that is located in Washington, D.C., and it was built in 1864, and now it is Gallaudet University. So, and there's many different dialects of sign language throughout America and throughout the world. So sign that we use here in the New England area may be very different than the West Coast sign language, because there's different dialects, just like how we all talk different in the United States. It's the same thing.
So we can understand each other, but it's not exactly the same.
Right. Yep. So they have, and one other little tidbit, only a deaf person can give you a sign name.
Good.
Yep, that's
the way it should be.
Yes. So don't go create your own.
Nope. I know it's tempting.
Yep.
Always tempting.
And another tidbit is the majority of deaf children are born to hearing parents, and kids who are born to deaf adults who are hearing are called CODA kids, kids of deaf adults.
Children of deaf adults.
Yep. CODA.
Right. So I was going to promote the movie. There's a movie available on Apple TV. We're not sponsored by Apple, but we're open to sponsorships. And it portrays the family life of a child of deaf adults. It was reviewed by an actual CODA who said they got a lot of things right and a lot of things wrong. So I'm really eager to see it, to compare what she said they got right and the things that she said they got wrong. So we can post a link to her review in the comments.
Yep.
So I'm going to segue into how you can use and how many people are using American Sign Language to facilitate language development for hearing and speaking children. There is very limited research on this, but I have to say that in my experience, my personal and my professional experience, using sign language coupled with, and then you're going to notice that my hands are always moving. That's because I all day long, I use sign language coupled with speech, with verbal language to facilitate language development for my students. I teach students who are between the ages of 3 and 5 with developmental disabilities. So the use of sign language has provided a bridge between their ideas and their ability to communicate, and it gives them that reciprocity and that fulfillment of being social, of having their needs met, of being able to express themselves without the speech that is later developing. So as we go on, I am going to talk a little bit about baby sign, because I also have personal experience with baby sign. I have a 4-year-old grandson, and when he was very little, we noticed that he was really, really intent. About 5 or 6 months old, he would lock your eyes, and he would start moving his mouth and making sounds. He really wanted to speak, but they call them oral motor articulators, weren't developed well enough for him to actually speak. So we started teaching him sign. We started with, of course, his favorite, eat. So when he would sign, he would touch his lips. Again, his fingers weren't developed enough to actually make the eat sign, but he would touch his lips, and he would make eye contact with his mother, and she would say, "Oh, you want to eat?" And she would sign it back to him and then give him something to eat. So what it did is it taught him that sign had a meaning, and that he could communicate what he wanted through using that sign. A lot of people start with the sign more. And that can be for anything: more play, more food, more water, more clothing, anything. But I digress. An article from the Mayo Clinic advises parents. It says it really, despite the lack of research, it appears to. So I'm going to say, remind you, correlation isn't causation, but it appears to open a doorway to communication for young children and is beneficial to their language development, and it cuts down on temper tantrums. So between the ages of 8 months to 12 months is a great time to start introducing those signs to children. And the Mayo Clinic suggests to keep your expectations realistic, feel free to start signing, and keep it simple. Keep it their basic needs. But wait until your child's about 8 months old. I know we started earlier with my grandson, but that's just because he was really intent to communicate at that time, and he is a precocious speaker.
Mm-hmm.
A little too much, but I digress. Keep the signs simple. Start with signs that are part of your actual everyday routine, like we did with my grandson. We started with eat, and then more, and then we moved on to all done really quickly. That was an important one for him to indicate that he wanted to end an activity. So we taught him that, and it gave him a lot of power. It really settled him down. Another thing that's really super helpful with simple signs is the finger plays that we all know, like the Itsy Weensy Spider, and now I can't think of them, I'm a little teapot. All of those gestural nursery rhymes also support language development and give meaning to children's language. And then the other recommendation from the Mayo Clinic is to make it interactive. Make sure that you give your full attention to your child when you're teaching them. And sit them in your lap facing you. Make it playful, make it fun. Don't make it arduous, like you will sign more and you will put your fingers together. It's not, there's no pressure. A lot of children begin by clapping to sign more. And be patient. If your child isn't picking it up, they're not very natural, they're not communicating natural, it might be that they're not ready. So take your time, stick with it, make sure you're coupling the sign with the spoken word, and you will see benefit. And if you don't, you can call me, tell me I'm wrong. So the next thing we wanted to talk about was early screening. Oh, I missed a point. I am so sorry. In an article from Nonverbal Behavior, an author named Carla Kemp said that a lot of parents who entered into the study that she was writing about were very concerned that their children wouldn't have any motivation to speak if they were being taught sign language. Well, that ended up being quite the opposite. And the children who were taught sign language very, very early had a more enriched vocabulary. They spoke earlier, and it also provided early positive literacy outcomes. Their learning to read and write was also enhanced by their early sign experience. So again, these articles, we'll put a link in the comments for you. Now we're going to talk about screening. So currently there are screening processes for newborns in all 50 states in the United States as a tool to provide early hearing detection and intervention. That is what the program is called. Audiology Online talked about early childhood screenings and said that while screening as a newborn is important, it's also important to continue to monitor your child's ability to hear throughout their life, because they can lose hearing for a variety of reasons. Severe ear infections, some viruses can cause hearing loss, and without regular checkups and regular check on their hearing, hearing loss can go undetected in children.
In Rhode Island, though, where we live, it's mandatory hearing tests for newborns.
Right,
not
and
every
in all
state
50 states it is.
Yeah.
That according to Audiology Online, it's mandatory in all 50 states. But what's not mandatory is that continued checkup. So have that be part of your regular pediatric checkup every year is what's recommended. Also in adulthood, this was a nugget that I came upon that I didn't know, and so us adults need to also monitor our hearing. There's a lot of reasons that an adult can lose their hearing, and it's gradual. It's like a lobster in a pot. You don't realize that you can't hear as well until you really can't hear well. So make sure that you make a hearing test part of your regular checkups, because hearing loss is a Johns Hopkins National Institute on Aging study, so that was a joint study in 2011, described a link between hearing loss in seniors and dementia. So that might be one way. Keeping your hearing in shape might be another way to prevent the onset of dementia. And the American Speech Language Hearing Association, otherwise known as ASHA, recommends that adults be screened every 10 years through the age of 50, and then after 50 every 3 years after that. So I think it might be due. So in addition to promoting screening for adults, screening for young children, early detection means addressing this hearing loss before it impacts a person's quality of life or leads to dementia in the case of an elderly person like myself. So the importance of early detection goes without saying.
Very good. Should we introduce ourselves?
Let's introduce ourselves. I've been gibbering on and on and on. My name is Roberta Curry. I'm a special education teacher, and this is my friend Sherri.
I am a mother of a child with Down syndrome and who is also hard of hearing. And I've learned so much about the deaf community over the last several years. They have an amazing language. They have such a beautiful language that I'm still learning.
A rich culture.
A very rich culture. It's an amazing community. If you have the opportunity to learn sign language, go take some classes, go to some immersions.
Don't forget baby sign. If you have young children in your life, learn a few baby signs.
Yeah.
I taught you a few. Now we have more and all done. Those are very important
milk.
ones. Oh yeah, and eat. That was a big one.
Eat.
Yeah. Arlo still reflectively signs. He comes in, he was like, "Can I have a snack?" Just in case I didn't get the word, I know he wants to eat.
My son's been learning sign language since he was born, basically. And it benefited him because he was continuously checked and gradually lost his hearing, and then ended up in the school for the deaf. So it was good that he already had
had that bridge between.
Yes, he already was starting to learn that language and knew a lot of individual signs, and then so it was an easy transition for him to go to the school for the deaf. So it was amazing.
All right, so I'm Roberta, this is Sherri, and together we are bridge builders of diversity.
Yep, bridging the gap between the special needs community and the typical community so we can all understand each other and love on each other.
So thank you so much for listening, and we love you, we appreciate you, and if you love and appreciate us, please make sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the bell notifications, push all those little buttons.
And on our Facebook page, which you're watching this on, we have a donate button that you can donate to our organization, and this will be uploaded to our YouTube channel shortly, so you'll be able to hear it online as well. And we weren't able to get the live stream going for YouTube, but we will get that fixed.
Next time, we promise.
Yes.
Well, we almost promise.
Once we figure out the technical issue.
Exactly.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you. We appreciate you.